Actually, I want to hear the story about how you got signed.
I went into Colombia and I had talked to Ron Perry plenty of times before. It's like mutual friend, but I don't think he ever really knew, like, oh, I wanted to take music seriously and like be, an artist. And so I kind of was like, okay, well, let me have a chance to talk to Ron about this because like I think he deserves to hear my story. And I'm like, okay, let's set a meeting. We set a meeting. I made this binder. I had a binder. And usually when you go into a label meeting, they're like expecting you to show them music.
You didn't play any music?
No music. I had colors printed out and I had words printed out.
Oh no.
I know, dream big, guys. I was like, I don't have the music because I haven't been able to go into the studio, but I was like, I know exactly what I want to do. And I was like, here's 50 words that are describing how the music's gonna make you feel, and here's 10 colors.
And they believed in you.
And they believed me, I know.
You cannot be for real. Oh my God, you for real. No, you for fake. No, you for real.
I like some Addison Rae songs, I genuinely do. I have Dead Pepsi and Fame is a Gun on repeat, but I just can't help but think Addison Rae has things too easy for someone who hasn't even released a sophomore album yet, and it's not as if her debut album pulled Olivia Rodrigo numbers either. Even Tate McRae, her fellow industry plantee, waited a bit after her first viral song before the industry that planted her let her grow into a tree. But Addison didn't waste any time at all. Because here's the thing, Addison Rae has one debut album, one, and she has already collaborated with Charlie XCX, opened for Lana Del Rey, performed at the Grammys, got a Grammy nomination, headlined Coachella, and had Olivia Rodrigo show up as her festival set. All of that off one album, and not even an album that has produced a run of mega hits. So the question I keep coming back to is, how does that actually happen? And more importantly, what does it tell us about the way the music industry works when it decides someone is worth investing in? Addison Rae was a TikTok dancer, one of the biggest ones back in the day. She blew up in 2019 posting dance videos, and by 2020 she was already one of the most followed people on the internet, the second most followed person on TikTok at her peak. And at some point, she looked at that platform and decided she always wanted more. Music, acting, the whole thing. I mean, that's fair. It's fine to not want to be known as a TikTok influencer all your life. But the transition was too easy for her. A lot of people use whatever door is open to walk through. The question is not whether she had the right to try. The question is what happened once she got inside, once she stepped a foot inside. Addison herself admitted that she literally was able to score a record deal with Columbia without having to audition. She walked into her first meeting with Columbia Records with a binder, a mood board binder. No music, no demos, no songs, just visual references and vibes. And they signed her anyway. She has literally talked about this in interviews.
I don't have the music because I haven't been able to go into the studio. And I was like, here's 50 words that are describing how the music's gonna make you feel, and here's 10 colors. And they believed me, I know. But I'm really good at convincing people to believe me. I really am.
But now you have been promoted. You are now one of my elite employees.
Now think about that for a second. Think about how many genuinely talented musicians are out there right now and cannot get a major label to return their calls. And Addison Rae walks in with a PowerPoint and a dream, and Columbia Records says we are in, because she had 88 million followers. The music was secondary. It was almost irrelevant. The audience was the product they were buying, and the music was just going to be the delivery mechanism for it. Her first single, Obsessed, came out in 2021 and was a failure. She was mocked, it was hated, and then it was quickly forgotten. Even she has since called her early music messy, which is one of the most self-aware things she has said. She then decided to pivot into acting, which also did not go particularly well, and for a minute, it looked like the Addison Rae music experiment was over. In regards to her acting career, it's so hard to believe she signed into William Morris Endeavor, one of the most difficult acting agencies, only a couple of months after joining TikTok. What's even crazier is that despite having zero acting experience, Addison somehow starred in a $20 million budget rom-com only 9 months after signing with WME. And for a minute, it genuinely looks like the music career experiment was over before it really started. But then something actually interesting happened. She came back in 2023 with her EP, AR, and on it was a Charlie XCX collaboration called To Die For. This song got leaked before release and was met with mixed reactions. Although it didn't really go viral, it circulated on TikTok and people started paying attention to her again. Then in 2024, she appeared on the Von Dutch remix on Charlie's Brat album. Then Diet Pepsi dropped in August 2024, and I will give credit where it is due. Diet Pepsi is a good song. It went viral. It hit the Billboard Hot 100, has over 400 million streams on Spotify, and was a somewhat hit. That is real. That happened. And I do personally quite like this song. And I haven't even considered if it was engineered or planned to go viral. In fact, if it was, she gets a pass for this one. After Diet Pepsi went viral, the rollout for the debut album kicked into a very high gear very quickly. Aquamarine dropped in October 2024, got strong reviews, got a remix from experimental producer Arca. High Fashion came out in February 2025 and landed her on the cover of Vogue France. Headphones On followed in April, Fame Is a Gone in May, and then the album, self-titled Addison, dropped June 6, 2025. Now, before the album even came out, she was already performing at Coachella, not as a headliner yet, but as a surprise guest during Arca's set, where she announced the album release date by literally showing the crowd the date written on her underwear. But notice what is happening here. She had not released a debut album yet, and she was already on the Coachella stage. The festival slot came before the album existed as a complete body of work. The album comes out, debut at number 4 on the Billboard 200, which is decent for someone who was once a TikToker turning into music. It gets real critical praise. The Guardian names her Artist of the Year by December. The Washington Post calls Addison the best album of 2025. The Fader agrees. These are serious publications making serious claims. So yes, people in the industry and music critics receive this record well. But look at what happens immediately after the album drops. She opens for Lana Del Rey at Wembley Stadium. How do they even know each other? How did they even meet? Also, in August, the Grammy Museum invites her for a spotlight event. Then she is on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, performing Diet Pepsi in a gold gown that previously belonged to Gypsy Rose Lee. Then in November, she gets the Grammy nomination for Best New Artist and performs at the actual Grammy ceremony as part of the nominees medley. In January 2026, she performs at Spotify's Best New Artist party. In March, she headlines Lollapalooza in Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. And then in April 2026, she headlines Coachella with her own full set. Maddie Ziegler dancing during Aquamarine, and Olivia Rodrigo coming out for a surprise performance. All of that in roughly 12 months. Even accounting for Diet Pepsi and eventually Fame Is a Gone, even accounting for their viral moments, the level of access and platform she has been given does not quite match the catalog she was sitting on when she got it. Her debut album, Addison, came out in June 2025. One platinum single, a handful of other songs with decent but not dominant streaming numbers, an EP that most casual listeners had not heard, and on the strength of that, she was performing at Madison Square Garden on the Sweat Tour, alongside Charlie XCX and Troye Sivan. That is a lot of real estate for a debut album. Most artists spend years earning a headlining concert. Most artists spend years earning a Coachella slot of that caliber. The standard trajectory involves building a live following gradually, playing smaller venues, growing the catalog, and eventually, when the demand is there, moving to bigger stages. Then there are the collaborations, and you have to talk about them because they are doing a very specific job in her career narrative. That is a seriously impressive list of names to have attached to your debut album era. Every single one of those names is a credibility deposit to make people take her seriously. Each collaboration is a carefully placed endorsement. Charlie XCX gives her credibility in the experimental pop world. Arca gives her artistic credibility. Elvira connects her to a proven songwriting pedigree. Max Martin's production network connects her to proven pop royalty. Lana Del Rey puts her in the lineage of serious artistic female pop stars. Olivia Rodrigo's cameo makes it seem like they're on the same level. Addison Rae gains credibility, artistic edge, and access to a more experimental music audience by collaborating with these people. It helps her be seen as more than a mainstream influencer pop star and shows she's serious about evolving creatively. Plus, let's not even get into her team trying to market her as the next Britney Spears. That's a whole topic for another video. Each one of these designed to put Addison Rae in the same sentence as serious female pop stars. The collaborations are doing the credibility work that the solo discography has not fully done yet on its own. And there is nothing unusual about collaborating. Every artist does it. But when the features and the cosigns are consistently more impressive than the standalone body of work, it starts to look more like a strategy, like someone sat down and mapped out which associations would move the needle most efficiently. And the thing is, it worked. It worked really well, but that is kind of the point. It's working this smoothly, this efficiently. That is what a manufactured career looks like. Even her bio on Google changed from TikToker to musician a bit too fast. The Grammy nomination for Best New Artist at the 68th Grammys is probably the most pointed example of this whole conversation. She did not win. Olivia Dean took home the award, but the nomination of itself is questionable. Best New Artist is supposed to recognize an artist who broke through with meaningful work. The criteria include things like chart performance, cultural impact, and artistic emergence. Diet Pepsi genuinely qualifies on some of those fronts, but her overall body of work at the time of the nomination was still very thin for that level of recognition. What it reflects is that the Grammy nomination, like the Coachella slot, is partly a product of the infrastructure around her. The label push from Columbia Records, the visibility from the Charlie XCX Association, the streaming numbers boosted by an enormous pre-existing social media following. All of those things create a kind of artificial gravity that pulls industry recognition towards you, regardless of whether the music alone would have gotten you there. With Addison Rae, the career has consistently been built ahead of the music, and the music is then expected to justify it later. The Coachella slot came before the album debut existed. The Wembley opening with Lana Del Rey came months after the album was released. The Grammy nomination came before the album had even had time to properly settle into the culture. Everything keeps running about 3 steps ahead of where the discography actually is. The gap between where the machine has put her and where the music actually is. That is what a manufactured career looks like. Just a career where the infrastructure moves faster than the art, because someone with enough resources decided to make it happen before the art was ready to make it happen on its own. She was a TikTok dancer who said she wanted to make music, and an entire industry apparatus decided to build something around her before she had even proven she could carry it. They all had something to gain from moving faster than the music warranted. She is, in many ways, a product of the system as she is a beneficiary of it. Even though her projects perform subpar, she continues landing new opportunities, like starring in Netflix acting shows, but I don't want to get into her acting career on this video. If you were any other female pop star, they would have been dropped by their agency long ago. But she is also the one who walked onto the Coachella stage last year and told her haters to, and I'm quoting her directly here, suck her D. So she is not exactly a passive bystander either. The real question going forward is whether she will eventually make the music that closes the gap that justifies her getting these opportunities, something that makes people forget she got into one of the biggest record labels with a mood binder. It might happen, the trajectory is moving in that direction, but right now, the career is still bigger than the catalog. But let's see where she goes from here and how her next album performs commercially.